Wu-Tang is a sword style. So that's what we do when we battle. When we walk around, we challenge each other with words, with the tongue, with the sharpness of the lyrics, as being verbally sharp, because we are lyrical assassins, and we know that the tongue is symbolic to the sword, you know, and when in motion, like when speaking, you get wind just from speaking. Just like when you swing the sword, you hear woo, because that's the sword swinging. Woo, woo, woo. And that's what it's all based around.
The year is 1995 and GZA is gearing up to drop his second studio album. With this release, it would make him the fourth Wu-Tang Clan member to release a solo album after the group's debut album in November of 1993. The pressure was on for GZA because Meth, ODB, and Raekwon, who released before him, had success of their own. Now it was GZA's time to deliver and prove why he's the genius of the Wu-Tang Clan. But before I get more into the video, I would first like to thank you guys for coming to see this. If you like the content, you should like, comment, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Also follow my Instagram too, that would be greatly appreciated. You guys can always reach out and just show me some love, it's all good. Let me know where you're tuning in from, represent where you're from, especially if you're representing Staten Island or any part of New York. Comment down below your favorite songs from Liquid Swords. Mine are Liquid Swords, Duel of the Iron Mic, 4-Chamber, Shadow Boxing, and Investigative Reports. Most importantly, comment down below what it was like for you when this album first dropped, because those are my favorite comments to read. Without further ado, let's get into the video. In the intro, I did mention that Liquid Swords would be GZA's second studio album, which is true. Some people might not know that GZA had an album prior to Liquid Swords. I didn't even know until I saw the Wu-Tang in American Saga series, which is the Wu-Tang TV show. The album Words from the Genius would release under Cold Chillin' Records in February of 1991. This would be released a year before the Wu-Tang's official formation of the group, because that would happen in 1992, which means that this was released 2 years prior to the release of their debut album as a group in 1993. During the making of the Words from the Genius album, GZA wasn't going by the name GZA and was going by the name The Genius. In regards to the album, GZA said this in 1995. They put out an album but didn't promote it. They tried to put it out again last year after everything happened with the clan, put a 94 date on it, but still didn't put any money behind it, so it didn't sell twice. I'm still proud of it though. The beats ain't all that, but lyrically stuff was banging. So it wasn't all peaches and cream, but I was determined to break through. A quitter never wins and a winner never quits. If you have heard GZA's music post Words from the Genius, when you go back and listen to his first album, it just seems like really weird. On the original album before the 1994 release, there was no production from RZA at all. The album was produced largely by Easy Mo B and Patrick Harvey. GZA grew frustrated with Cold Chillin' Records and ended up getting off the label. But like I said, after this, the Wu-Tang Clan would form and the group would take off from there. When GZA began making Liquid Swords, he felt like he had something to prove and needed to slash back with this album. He was no longer on Cold Chillin' Records and now was on Geffen Records. Why this is important is because of RZA's 5-year plan. For those who don't know what this plan was, essentially RZA made a plan with Steve Rifkin, who was the then owner of Loud Records. The Wu-Tang Clan was signed as a group to Loud Records, but however, each individual member were free agents. RZA wanted to take the group to #1 in 5 years, and he wanted the members to sign to other labels to increase their reach. At the time of Liquid Swords, Method Man went to Def Jam, ODB went to Elektra, and Raekwon would stay with Loud Records. And GZA would ultimately sign to Geffen Records. Geffen Records was founded by David Geffen, and upon signing, he told GZA that he didn't want to sign any rappers. The reason why he said that was because he was tired of hearing the same story. Here's what GZA had to say about this. Well, when rappers make a movie about themselves, it's always the same story. He was into music, but he was selling drugs. Rappers could never be writers in Hollywood, it wouldn't work. We could never do that because we'd be writing the same story. This is what most people don't realize. Out of 100 artists, only one can rap in his own voice. The rest are imitators. When you have a unique unique artist, it's like Haley's comment because it doesn't come often. Take Adele as an example. She's powerful, she makes strong music, and she sounds like no one else. That's also why she sells the most copies in the first week of sales. She's different. It's the same with Alanis Morissette, the same with Nirvana, and the same with Wu-Tang. At the time, you would think that this would spell trouble for GZA, but everything ended up working out for him. He was signed to the company by A&R Wendy Goldstein. GZA would further say, "When I signed to Geffen, we just had so much leeway. Wendy was letting us do what we wanted to do, pick out singles for the album. It was great working with her because anything I wanted to do, I was allowed to do. We knew exactly what we wanted to do. It was myself and RZA coming in there with me as a producer. It was his vision and my vision." With RZA and GZA having control, they would work on Liquid Swords. It just so happened to be that during the making of this album, RZA was trying to wrap up making Only Built for Cuban Links for Raekwon. This meant that some beats that were intended for Liquid Swords ended up being on Only Built for Cuban Links. One example of this is the Raekwon song Incarcerated Scarfaces. This was supposed to be a beat for GZA, but upon hearing the beat, Raekwon wrote to it and ended up making a song to it. RZA was trying to be done with Only Built for Cuban Links at this time because RZA likes for an album to be around 13 songs rather than 18, which ended up being the number of songs on Only Built for Cuban Links. Something that I find really interesting about the making of Liquid Swords is that according to GZA, during the making of this album, beats were played for 2 days straight while he wrote his lyrics. GZA would reveal in an interview that the writing process for this album was really slow, but not in a traditional sense. I don't say slow in the sense that it necessarily took me a long time to finish what I'm writing. I mean, Raekwon and Ghostface could step in and record a song in about 45 minutes. I, on the other hand, would often go back and finish rhymes that I started. I would say I piece things together more slowly then. Songs generally take me 2 to 3 days to write. Sometimes I take different sentences and put them together. After the Wu-Tang's debut album, RZA had a vision for members and their solo albums, a vision that included the demographics that he wanted certain members to hit. For instance, RZA wanted Method Man to bring in the ladies and children, while Ray and Ghost were to bring in the gangsters. For GZA, RZA saw him reaching toward the intellectual people in college. GZA has said that it wasn't his personal goal to reach that specific demographic, and Method Man didn't necessarily agree with his position of attracting the ladies, but still to this day, the ladies love Method Man, so RZA was right on the money with that. Speaking of RZA, those who follow his work and his story would know that him and the members of the Wu-Tang Clan are really into cinema. In my Only Built for Cuban Links video I recently did, link in the description, I detailed how RZA and Raekwon used movies like Scarface, The Killer, and The Godfather to craft that album. With Liquid Swords, it would be the movie Shogun Assassin that, according to GZA, isn't a theme but more like a thread throughout the album. He would even admit that he didn't see the movie until after recording the album. It was a last-minute addition from RZA. RZA did that in the last stages of the album. We were actually beyond mixing the album. The album was mixed already and we were mastering the album, and he sent the engineer out or someone from the studio and said, "Bring me back Shogun Assassin," and threw it on the album. That came at the very last minute. I must say I'm glad RZA did that because it was truly a nice touch. The first single for the album, I Got Your Back, was released all the way back in August of 1994. This song, along with Raekwon's song Heaven and Hell, both appeared on the soundtrack to the movie Fresh. Due to the song being released in August of 1994, this song came over a year before Liquid Swords, the album, would release. This was one of the first songs written for the album, in fact. The second single released for the album was the title track Liquid Swords, which dropped over a year later in October of 1995. Finally, in November of 1995, Liquid Swords would release and peaked at number 9 on the Billboard 200 charts. As for the title of the album, GZA would explain, "Liquid Swords is a concept of being lyrically sharp, flowing like liquid metal, mercury you know. It comes from this flick, Legend of the Liquid Sword, where people would get their head cut off, but it would still be on their shoulders. No one else would notice because the sword was so sharp. Wu-Tang is a sword style, and this here is the sharpest. I'd rather slip on the pavement than slip on my tongue." Besides the music on this album, one other thing that really stands out is its cover. The album's artwork was done by Dennis Cowan, who's a renowned comic book artist. The concept of the chessboard with with its sword-wielding warriors was conceived by GZA, who is an avid chess player. Members of the Wu-Tang Clan like RZA and Master Killer are also avid chess players as well. GZA learned how to play chess as a kid, but didn't start regularly playing it again until his 20s. GZA compares chess to a sword fight because you must think first before you move. Each chess player has their own style, just like an MC has their own style. There are different openings in chess, just like there are different ways to approach a track or write a rhyme. There happens to be versions of the deluxe album that contains a chess set, which is actually really dope in my opinion. The last thing I want to note is that I've talked about this topic that I'm about to talk about multiple times on my channel. People who know the history of the Wu-Tang Clan would know the story of the infamous floods that occurred, which ultimately affected not only Wu-Tang Clan history but rap history as well. These floods resulted in the loss of an estimated 500 plus beats and tons of lost music, including a Spider-Man themed Inspector Deck album. Based on group member accounts, it appears the first flood happened before the release of Method Man's Clout album, and the second flood happened right after the release of Raekwon's debut album, Only Built for Cuban Links. This means that Liquid Swords wasn't affected, or wasn't really affected that much, but I feel like it should get a mention. This will wrap up the first part of the video where I discuss the history leading up to the album, and in the second part of the video I will break down the history behind each track. The album starts off with the title track Liquid Swords, and we immediately get met with an excerpt from the movie Shogun Assassin, which really sets the tone for the album. As I mentioned in the first part of the video, GZA takes a few days to write his rhymes, but it wasn't like that for this track. He normally likes to take a beat home and write to it, but for this track, he spit it right on the spot. The hook for the song was from a routine that he did around 1984 with RZA and ODB. This song would fade into the song Duel of the Iron Mic, which contains another sample from Shogun Assassin, and there's also a sample from another movie called The Dragon the Hero in the beginning as well. I'm pretty sure the title of the song is also in reference to the 1971 martial arts movie Duel of the Iron Fist. Duel of the Iron Mic is one of GZA's favorite tracks on the album, and I can't blame him because it's one of mine as well. The beat on this song is bananas, and I love how GZA just smoothly comes in and laces the track. ODB would make an appearance, and GZA was really happy that ODB blessed the track. In the hook of the song, ODB would say Duel of the Iron Mic is the 52 fatal strikes. Now I've heard this for years but never really bothered to look up exactly what the 52 fatal strikes were. I just thought that it was just some kung fu stuff. From what I've researched, the 52 fatal strikes is a reference to the 52 hand blocks, which is a fighting style that some say originated in the US prison system, but I've read an article where, according to Professor Mo, a master of the 52 blocks, says that most masters of the 52 blocks will tell you that it's a martial art from Africa. This fighting style is also known as jailhouse rock. This style has been mentioned in multiple Wu-Tang songs by various members, but GZA would also reference the 52 blocks in his song Cold World, which we'll talk about in a bit. The more you know. Living in the World Today would be the next track on the album. This is a track that GZA wrote over and over for hours. The song Gold would follow directly after this. Some facts about this track is that Method Man would help GZA with the hook for this song. The hook for this song is inspired by the song Ain't No Mountain High Enough. Cold World would immediately follow this track, and as soon as GZA heard the song, he knew that he was going to write another inner city story. The beginning of the first verse is inspired by the movie The Night Before Christmas. How the song Cold World came about is that GZA has a cousin who he calls Life. His cousin would sing some background vocals on the album, and he would be present in the studio during the making of the song. His cousin Life would end up singing the Stevie Wonder song Rocket Love, and RZA would tell Life to change the words around, which is how the hook for the song was made. The song labels would follow this up, and the premise of this song is talking about the dangers of record labels. Some would say that GZA did this song due to his negative experience with Cold Chillin' Records, but that's not entirely true. It was part of the reason why he made it, but GZA didn't aim to deliberately make a song dedicated to problems with labels. The idea came from his friend who said Tommy Ain't My Boy, which is a play on Tommy Boy Records. GZA loved this concept due to him liking doing songs based around wordplay with one theme. In the song, he named labels like Def Jam, Priority, Atlantic, Motown, and Arista, to name a few. Some of the labels such as Cold Chillin', Jive Records, A&M Records, Sleeping Bag Records, and Profile Records are all defunct. Now we get into my absolute favorite song on the album, which has one of the best beats of all time, which is Fourth Chamber. I think that this and the Triumph beat that RZA did are two of his best beats ever, because you really feel like you're about to go to war. Everything about Fourth Chamber is just crazy. The intro of the song is a scene from Lone Wolf and Cub, which is the Japanese manga that Shogun Assassin was adapted from. In the scene, the Shogun's executioner discovered that a botched attempt to assassinate him has taken his wife's life. This leaves him compelled to abandon his life and embark on the demon's path to hell, seeking vengeance at any cost. He ultimately gives his 1-year-old son the choice of joining this quest or immediate death by presenting a ball and a sword. The ball represents death, while the sword represents the child living and embarking on the quest. The deeper meaning of this in relation to the album is that these characters are cursed with choices by circumstance and duty. It really makes you consider how many people result to violence and crime by choice versus how often they are pushed onto that path by tragic circumstances. After this, we are met with the insane buildup of the beat, which takes us to one of my favorite Ghostface verses of all time. GZA ended up having the last verse for this song, and the reason why in this case is because he did not have his verse ready in time. Ghostface at this point had already laid his verse, so GZA knew that he had to come correct. I also never knew that Fourth Chamber had a music video to it. I recently saw it on YouTube and it's pretty dope, especially knowing that GZA directed the video. He would also direct the I Gotcha Back music video as well. I think that everybody who featured on Fourth Chamber had a dope verse, especially Killah Priest. The title of Fourth Chamber is a reference to the kung fu movie The 36th Chamber of Shaolin. In the movie, there are 35 original chambers that a Shaolin monk must go through and master before he is considered a martial arts expert. Every chamber has a specific task a Shaolin monk has to complete in order to be able to continue to the next chamber. The fourth chamber trains wrist strength. Monks must strike a gong with a weighted pole to the rhythm of a headmaster striking his wooden fish. After Fourth Chamber, we get into the most popular song on the album, which is Shadowboxing, featuring Method Man. Method Man would have two phenomenal verses, and GZA would say that he himself was the filler for the song, which is why he's in the middle of two Meth verses. RZA would tell GZA that he needed to get on the song, so he put GZA in between. According to Method Man, GZA was supposed to put two verses on the song as well, but he only put one. Meth also says that his style flipped with this record. Before Shadowboxing, he was always doing up-tempo stuff, but he credits this song along with the song The Riddler for flipping his style. Hell's Windstaff Killer Hills 10304 would be the next track on the album, and this is one of GZA's favorite tracks as well because the song is long and has no hook. The beginning of the track starts with a skit. The people who appear in this skit are RZA, Wu-Tang affiliate Dreddy Kruger, GZA, and Master Killa. You will hear nicknames on this skit, and for those who don't know, Bobby Stills is RZA, Noodles is Master Killa, GZA is Maximilian, and U-God is Lucky Hands. This song has a lot of depth in terms of sound because GZA and Killah Priest were walking around recording random sounds, and one such random thing that they recorded was them banging forks on the table while RZA was talking to some guy in a restaurant. In my only Built for Cuban Links video, I mentioned how RZA made all the Wu-Tang members get a portable DAT to record audio. The reason why RZA did this is because he felt like there was no telling where they were going to be when an idea hit them, so if they had a portable DAT, they could record whatever they needed to do. The song is a street story, but it isn't told in a regular street way. Some of the inspiration for the song came from a documentary GZA saw on Pablo Escobar. From what I've researched, Hell's Windstaff is a Shaolin Kung Fu pole fighting routine and also the title of a 1979 martial arts film. Killer Hills is slang for the Park Hill housing projects in Staten Island, New York. 10304 is the zip code for Staten Island, specifically the Park Hill Stapleton area, so that's what the name of the song references. Investigative Reports would be the 10th track on the album with appearances from U-God, Raekwon, and Ghostface Killah. The song starts off with a TV excerpt that describes the Battle of Long Island, which was fought in August of 1776 in Brooklyn and resulted in a British victory. GZA can't really remember much from this track, but remembers RZA playing the beat and Raekwon setting it off. U-God would do the hook and Ghostface would lay his verse. After investigative reports, we have the song Swordsman. The hook for this song was another routine that GZA did a long time ago growing up. I Got Your Back would be the next song, and this was a short rhyme that RZA wrote for one of his nephews. His nephew was 12 at the time, and his father, who is GZA's brother, had been locked up since 1988. So his father wasn't around for him when times were rough, so GZA wanted to cheer up his nephew a bit with this track. Two of GZA's nephews appeared in the music video as well. Sadly though, the video to this song is kind of ironic. I had two nephews in the video. They were both real young at the time, and in the video they both had met up and shots rang out from some young gangsters. It's a shame because both those kids in the video, both nephews of mine, ended up getting in trouble for ringing out shots and are both doing time right now. It's kind of ironic. One of my nephews ended up getting 8 years for that stuff, so the whole song is a sad irony to me now. There happens to be a bonus track on the album which is Bible or Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth, which is a Killah Priest solo song. This is also the only track on the album that isn't produced by RZA and is produced by Fourth Disciple. GZA really wanted to get Killah Priest on the album, and Killah Priest told him that he could do the whole track, in which they let him do it. This is an incredibly deep song from the album. Killah Priest has spoken about how he got this song on the album and describes it as a process. Originally, Killah Priest did his rhymes over a different beat. Killah Priest went on to record the song on the beat that we know of today and played it for GZA, who wanted it on the album. The thing was that after this, Killah Priest played it for RZA and he heard the song and he didn't think that it fit Liquid Swords and ended up being the bonus track on the album. This wraps up the album Liquid Swords, which is an album that has truly stood the test of time decades later. People regard it as not only one of the best solo Wu-Tang Clan albums, but also one of the best albums of all time. The album went gold in January of 1996 and it finally went platinum in September of 2015. Something that I learned upon doing my research is that GZA considers this to be his best album, but lyrically he doesn't think that it's his best. All in all, what do you guys think of the album? Let me know in the comment section below. I love you guys with all my heart. I'm out. Peace.